all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the founder of the King Consultant, no other than Miss Amanda Dames.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Amanda. And can you please introduce more about
Sure
yourself?
thing. I am the kink consultant. I talk about all things kink in dating, relationships, and pop culture. And I am a sex and relationship coach who help individuals and couples introduce BDSM into their relationships.
Indeed, Miss Amanda, the King Consultant, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. So, understanding BDSM and foundations.
Yeah.
What does BDSM really mean beyond the common stereotypes?
Oh, great question. Okay. So, BDSM, the acronym stands for bondage, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. There's a lot under that title. So it's a really big umbrella. And that's when people think about BDSM and kink, they often think about people dressed up in all leather or latex, whips and chains. But kink is something that I believe is being practiced by about 60% of couples because kink is anything that isn't vanilla, meaning stereotypical sex.
Yes.
So it's a really wide spectrum. So if you've ever used handcuffs, if you've ever even dirty talked, that's kinky. And it's a spectrum. So I help people understand where they fall on that spectrum. Some people, like I was growing up, know exactly where they fall, but they don't understand what it means or how to explore it. And then other people are like, I want more out of my intimacy, but I'm not sure. I think I'm dominant or I think I'm submissive. I want to play with power exchange. And that's sort of what I do within BDSM because it's so broad.
Very broad indeed, and Miss Amanda beautifully articulated.
Thank you.
How do you help couples determine if BDSM is right for their relationship?
Yeah, so a lot of couples come to me. Well, one of the partners will come to me and they'll say, I'm really interested in exploring this. Or me and my partner have dabbled a little bit, but we're not really sure what we're doing and we want to get better. So usually it's one person who will come to me because they wanted just a little bit more. And it's important to note no two people, or it's very rare for two people to match up perfectly in what they desire within their intimacy. So they're sort of building a bridge towards each other to connect, and I help them build that bridge. So sometimes a couple will come to me, usually it's an individual, and they'll explain to me what they're looking for and what they think they're interested in. And what I do for them is whether it's an individual or a couple, I have one on one sessions with each individual and I find out what they're interested in exploring. And then I go a level deeper and I help them figure out what their core desire is within that kink. Meaning, I always use myself as an example. I really enjoy discipline and being spanked. And the reason I enjoy that is I feel someone is looking out for me. And I feel safer if someone is paying attention and they know when I'm doing something bad or good and they take note of that. So for me, my core desire is to feel safe and seen. I use this information so that when I talk to my partner about it, I don't just say, hey, I like to be spanked and punished. I say, hey, when I'm spanked and punished, I feel loved, I feel seen, I feel paid attention to, and it's almost like my love language. I help individuals figure that out about themselves. And then I work with both of them together as a couple to sort of facilitate the conversations and mediate with them to help them achieve their highest level of intimacy or what they want as their goal.
Miss Amanda, is it 50 Shades of Grey is a good example of BDSM?
Um, difficult question. It's not a great example because they really didn't do it safely. It's funny because I feel like they could have used the kink consultant in their relationship. They both
Yes,
wanted this type of relationship, one more than the other, which is pretty common. Obviously, Christian Grey was much more experienced than Anastasia Steele,
yes.
but she really wanted it as well. I think what they were missing was an understanding of each other's boundaries. While Christian was very strict about and very forthcoming about, like, don't touch me in these areas, I think that they each had triggers that they could have spent more time exploring, and they probably could have connected a little bit more before jumping into play. I don't think either one of them took the time to understand the why or the desire behind it. And I think that's how it could have helped. So, 50 Shades isn't a great example. It can be sexy, but it's fantasy. The reality could have used a little bit more negotiation and definitely honoring boundaries.
Interesting indeed, Miss Amanda, and thank you for sharing your information about that. What are the most common misconceptions couples have when first exploring BDSM?
One of the misconceptions that I think I deal with the most is each partner just sort of expecting their other partner to understand what they want without talking about it. It can be very frustrating, and you feel like, oh, why don't they just know? They should know by now. But it's constant communication. So I think one of the biggest myths is like your partner will just know, or if your partner's dominant, they'll understand. And that's simply not true. So that's myth number one. Myth number two is that, oh, you're born kinky. Not everyone is, or it's caused by, sorry. Myth number two is basically that it's caused by trauma, but some people are born that way. Some people develop it later in life out of a curiosity. And yes, for some people, it is caused by trauma. So I would say that's one of the other big myths. And then one of the third type of myths or misconceptions is that either one has all the power. The Dom has all the power, and the Dom is the person in charge, the dominant position. Or some people will say the sub has all the power because they can call a safe word at any time. And a safe word is a word that the couple agree upon in advance of playing or starting a scene. And that safe word ends everything. And as soon as the sub says it, the scene is over so that you can calibrate on, like, hey, what's going on? Is everything all right? But the thing is, the Dom can say that word too. So it's a power exchange, and no one person has all the power. So those I'd say are the top three that I deal with.
Indeed, misconceptions.
Yes.
People, can any couple explore BDSM, or are their personality types better suited for it?
Any couple, anyone can explore this. I do think people who are curious and open-minded might find it a little bit easier because if they're open and willing to ask questions, they'll be able to explore a lot easier. So if you're expecting it to be one-sided and one person tells you everything
Any
they
couple.
want, it's not going to work so well because you might not fully understand it. So it's helpful if both people can have a conversation and each ask each other questions. So I would say curious is the personality type that does well with BDSM.
I like it. Being curious in everything, people. So let's talk about getting started. What are some beginner friendly practices for couples new to BDSM?
Oh, love this question. I think praise kinks are pretty common, and that can just be something like during intimacy or maybe making out and foreplay. You might be, I'm going to use a male dominant, female submissive because I'm talking about myself right now. I think a great intro for me would be someone saying, good girl, right? During intimacy,
Yes.
like maybe I kiss, that really does a lot for me. But it's very situational. It's person specific. That's why asking questions in advance is helpful. Maybe before you engage in this type of play, you can ask your partner, "Hey, do you think you'd like this?" If you're close enough in the relationship and you feel confident and safe enough to just try it, good girl, you're doing so well. I love the way that feels. Sort of verbalizing everything you're loving and making them feel good about what they're doing. And that can work both ways. You can praise each other. Sometimes light impact play is a really good place to start as well. Light spanking on the butt with your hand, not introducing any implements yet. So no paddles, no nothing, just the hand because you can pretty much minimize like damage can be pretty minimal if you're just starting off light, um you're building up to something a little bit more, but definitely start light. So we have praise, we have a little bit of impact play with spanking. And I also think a little hair pulling can be nice and it's a good start because it's kind of primal. It's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
aggressive. Again, you want to have a conversation to make sure the person's okay with it. And if I could just give a little demo of how, when I say hair pulling, I do not mean like this. Okay. What you want to do is you want to bring the hand up the back, like the nape of the neck, and get really close to the hair, like to the neck, and grab within there. Sorry, I have a lot of hair. So I want to, so if you just imagine grabbing like there, close to the scalp as possible, because that's going to be less tension. It's going to pull less, but it's going to be very erotic, right? So I think those three are really good ways to start spicing it up. From there, if you're ready for level two, you could introduce some light bondage. I'd suggest maybe those under the bed cuffs. You can't do too much damage with those. Just make sure not to tie it too tightly. And I'd say that would be your starter kit of how to get started.
Miss Amanda, thank you so much for sharing those tips. I hope people are listening or watching us will follow you. So, how do you recommend couples to start the conversation about their fantasies and limits?
Okay, so because this is so foundational, I recommend that couples individually think about what their own fantasies are and what they'd like to explore. Then take it a little step further for themselves and think, why do I want to explore this? What is so exciting about this to me? So then they have not just the action, but the why behind it. And once they figured that out for themselves, I encourage the couple to come together and discuss it. I actually created a freebie on my website. And Daniel, if you scroll up, it's Speaking Your Desires with Confidence. And it's on the um, first page. It's at the very top of the
Yeah.
website. Yeah. And it's, if you go there to amandadames.com, the very first section is about speaking your desires with confidence. And I recommend everyone go there to download this freebie workbook, entirely free. And it's a guide of what to ask yourself. And then you go with your partner and you each compare your answers. And it's a great discussion starter. So I highly recommend people who want to start the kink discussion start there.
Indeed. Miss Amanda, what will be your recommended books for our topic for today?
So there are a ton of great books for people who are starting out completely new and they don't fully understand if they're a dom or a sub or a top or a bottom and they just want to learn the fundamentals of each of those roles. I'm going to recommend two books written by the same two people. So the first book is called The New Bottoming Book, and that's about subs and bottoms. And the second book is called The New Topping Book, about tops and doms. Okay. And those books are by Janet Hardy and Dossie Easton. They wrote both books. And I recommend everyone start there for the foundational knowledge. You can also find a ton online. And like once you begin to understand what way you lean, is it dominant? Is it submissive? Are you both? You can further dive into your research, look online, get more books once you better understand yourself. But those are the two books I recommend everyone start with if they are brand new.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for those recommendations. So let's talk about communication and emotional connection. How
Yeah.
can BDSM strengthen emotional intimacy between partners?
Ooh, it it requires a lot of trust, okay? So one of the ways it can strengthen it is if you're starting out, I think it's really important to put time into knowing how to trust your partner with your emotions. And that can require conversations that have actually nothing to do with BDSM or intimacy or sex. They're just how you approach each other, how you talk about sensitive topics, really showing up and giving quality time to your partner to listen to their needs and wants and share yours. So, just the act of starting a BDSM journey can deepen the intimacy even before you get to the bedroom, right? Because you need to
Yes.
start sharing things, you need to start exploring whether or not you trust the person even if you've been together for 5 plus years. You want to know that you can trust them to take charge in the bedroom or give up control in the bedroom and really explore in a safe way. So, just starting that topic or just starting that discussion is really helpful to begin with. After
How
that,
can,
yeah,
yes,
well, hold on.
go
After
ahead.
that, when you really start getting to play, there is such a deep bond, and you can end up going into something, if you're the sub, called subspace. And that's sort of this ethereal state where your endorphins are so high you feel like you're floating. And a Dom can go through something like that called Dom space, where they're sort of in a flow state and they're really feeling this energy exchange, this power exchange. So that can further deeper the intimacy and it's an amazing connection. So those types of things, just between prepping and then practicing, and then aftercare, once the scene is finished and the intimacy is finished, just holding each other, asking what the other person needs. These are all extra touch points that don't always happen in vanilla or non BDSM intimacy. A lot of times they do, but I think that also deepens it as well.
Interesting indeed, Miss Amanda. How can couples balance power dynamics in BDSM with their everyday relationship roles?
Ooh, that is something that you need. It's constant, right? Even people who
Yes.
live a 24/7 lifestyle in the BDSM roles, if they're doing it constantly, and there are a lot of people out there who do, they spend a lot of time connecting, checking in with each other. The power exchange side isn't one person having all the power and the other just accepting that they've given over control. It's about the exchange. It's about taking care of each other and checking in with each other regularly. So, if you want to do this full time, you have to develop weekly check ins, daily check ins, just time to connect and see how things are going. If it's too much, if it's too little, and be constantly ready to readjust. If you don't always want to be in the roles, which is also probably the more common way the more common way BDSM is practiced. What you want to do is talk about how you decide whether or not you're going to partake in BDSM. Not every scene, not every intimate moment needs to include this. You might just say, "Hey, I'd love to play a little bit with power tonight. I would love to be the dom or I would love to submit tonight." Have that conversation, and it can be a lot of energy. So be very understanding if your partner's like, not tonight, or can we talk about it, or just do a light version of it. Kink and BDSM are extremely customizable, even within your relationship, as long as you're talking about it.
Miss Amanda, let's talk about the challenges and growth. What are common challenges couples face when exploring BDSM together?
It's a little bit of that, what I mentioned earlier, of expectations without communication. Also, I think that more people tend to be submissive than dominant. So sometimes both partners might want to submit or be the submissive one. And that's something that has to be navigated and negotiated. So I think that's a common thing that couples run into, having different interests and one person wanting their fantasy catered to more than the other person is getting it catered to. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be
Yes.
balanced, or you both have to be happy with the give and take that's happening. And I think that is something that a lot of couples kind of Have to work out early on. Oh, and then another one is consistency. One person can come in all excited and come in hot and be like, this is how it's going to be. And they can sustain that for maybe one scene, two scenes a week. But when it comes to sustaining it long term, if they've come in too hot, that can fizzle, right? So I would say consistency is key, and you want to be mindful of that. If you're dealing with a particularly challenging submissive type like a brat, I mean, and Doms can be bratty too, but if you're dealing with that and the Dom makes a threat and says, hey, if you do that, you're going to be in trouble, and the bratty sub does whatever they weren't supposed to, that Dom has to follow through on the threat that they came up with. Otherwise, it shows inconsistency, and that can really hurt a relationship's bond in BDSM.
Miss Amanda, as a founder of the King Consultancy, what will be your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, my short-term goals are to continue seeing clients, individuals, and couples. Long term, I tell people this, and it's a pretty bold statement, but I would love to have a TV show where I show what I do as the kink consultant, and I help individuals and couples on camera so that more people can learn the tools and what it really looks like to explore BDSM. Because as of right now, I think for the most part, what we get is movie versions. We get 50 Shades of Grey, we get Baby Girl, we get these unrealistic portrayals of what it really looks like to be in a BDSM relationship full time.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Amanda. And what advice do you give to someone who is interested in BDSM but their partner is hesitant?
Ooh, I would definitely recommend downloading the worksheet I talked about on amandadames.com, the Speak Your Desires with Confidence, because that's going to be a step-by-step guide for each of you. And I think it might give the hesitant partner more of an understanding of where you're coming from, which can be helpful. I also think being patient is important and leading with gratitude. If your partner is willing to even have the discussion, I want you to be mindful of how far they're coming to meet you. If this is not something they're interested in and they're taking the time to learn it all, that's really important. However, if the partner is not only not interested, but really doesn't want to have this, I think it's important to note you cannot force someone to be interested in kink just because you are. And sometimes you do have to deal with the disappointment that this is something that you're not going to be able to explore in your relationship. Yeah, so it's give and take, and for some people, they can take their partner on the journey and eventually achieve some of their kink goals, and then for others, you have to be respectful of your partner's boundaries.
Miss Amanda, what led you to become a coach in this specific area of intimacy?
Oh, so I'm Somatica certified, and Somatica is a pleasure and embodiment based practice. And when I was going through it, I saw how beneficial it was, and I just thought more of a focus and applying this method to BDSM relationships and applying this coaching method specifically to individuals and couples who want to explore kink could do so much good. And I just saw how it related to kinks, and it made me want to specialize in this. And also, as I mentioned, I was born kinky. I remember thinking I was crazy for being obsessed with spanking, and
Mhm.
it came with a lot of shame. So, my entire aim is to destigmatize and deshamify kink so no one else has to feel shame about something that is very normal, but society sometimes tells us it isn't.
Yes, Miss Amanda, we salute you for being kinky and sharing your knowledge to the world. How do you create a safe and non-judgmental space for couples to open up?
I try to be as celebratory as possible. If someone is opening up, I want to celebrate that. And I think if you lead and start with like someone shares something vulnerable about themselves, my first reaction personally is to be excited that they're opening up. So it's not so much focused on what they've shared as much as I'm like, okay, let's have an appreciation for them sharing and knowing themselves and being able to verbalize this feeling they're having. From there, I start to explore, well, how does this make them feel? Are they excited to get this information out? how has this feeling impacted their life? So, once again, I'm leading with curiosity. And when you're leading with curiosity, there's less room for judgment in the first place. I'm a non-judgmental person, so it's very hard for someone to say something where I'm like, "How dare you?" or "That's gross." Um, I think I just want to get to the why. Like, why do you feel this way? What brought this out? That that helps.
Indeed, why you want to explore BDSM. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, Miss Amanda, I'm inviting you to please do visit my Book 101 merchandise, people. Write your future style because on Book 101 review, we will read it, wear it, live it. And some of the merchandise we are offering are t-shirt, mags, hats, bags, and many more. So please do visit Book 101 merchandise collection. So, Miss Amanda, what's the most rewarding part of helping couples explore BDSM together?
My favorite part of my job is just getting to see people accept themselves and have the best sex of their lives. Like when they and their partner have amazing chemistry and they've learned how to talk to each other and communicate, and they come back to me and they're like, "Oh my God, we had an amazing scene. We had so much fun exploring." That makes me really happy because I know I was able to help them have experienced this amazing joy, passion, energy that they couldn't connect on before. And I feel like I'm changing the world one couple at a time when I'm doing it.
Miss Amanda Dames, thank you so much for changing the world itself, for making couples happier. And so, can you please invite our listeners to support the King Consultancy?
Yeah, thank you so much. I would love if you would follow me on Instagram at the_kink consultant, on TikTok at the kink consultant. I also have a podcast where I interview kinky people, and that's called the Kink Consultant Podcast. You can get it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Um, and then finally, if you are interested in hiring a coach, you can send me an email by visiting amandadames.com, and you can submit a contact there.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Amanda Danes because we just support her more and more and more empowering coaching to come. More and more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself to come. So, Miss Amanda, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. I've had such a good time. You asked great questions, and it was an honor to be on the podcast today.
More to come, people. See you soon.